Saeed El Mala is a rapid, direct, powerful, skillful and clinical left winger with the dribbling style of Eden Hazard and the physique of Morgan Rogers. And at just 19, he's tearing up the Bundesliga for FC Koln and putting up numbers that rival Europe's elite. So in this episode of Essential Football Transfers, we'll use high-level statistical analysis and elite tactical profiling to outline why a Premier League team must buy him ASAP before Bayern Munich do. Dino, give us El Mala's essentials.
Saeed El Mala is 19, was born in Krefeld, Germany in August 2006 to a German mother and Lebanese father. He's 6'1", right-footed, came through the Victoria Koln Academy and made his senior debut in February 2024. He signed for FC Koln a year later, where he earns £13,000 a week and has 4.5 years left on his deal. He's represented by Footfeel ISM, the massive agency who also manage Lautaro Martinez and Ashraf Hakimi. He is yet to win a senior German cap, but played for the under-18s, 19s and 21s. Now Will, tell us, why should a Premier League club sign him?
On the previous episode of Essential Football Transfers, we outlined how RB Leipzig's star wide man Jan Diomande is outperforming two of the Premier League's best left wingers in Anthony Gordon and Antoine Semenyo, putting him firmly on the radar of Europe's biggest clubs, including Liverpool and Manchester United. But not everyone can sign Diomande, so here's why El Mala would be an ideal alternative. He's 7th in the Bundesliga goal scoring ranks this season, and from that top 10, only Harry Kane, Stuttgart's Dennis Undav and Frankfurt's Jonathan Burkhardt have better goals per 90-minute rates than El Mala's 0.71. He also ranks 13 in the whole of the Bundesliga for total XG, which is no surprise whatsoever, as his direct style, power and the fact the ball virtually sticks to his foot when running at pace constantly sees him break into the box and leave defenders in his wake when he gets into dangerous positions. And the fact his goals per 90 rate is 51% higher than his XG shows he's not messing about when he gets there either, because this guy scores all sorts of goals. He loves smashing in a screamer top bins after cutting in on his right, but he's also happy to ghost in at the back post like Brennan Johnson under Ange for that glorious tap-in. And his goal creating actions rate of 1 per 90 is the 9th highest across all of Europe's Big Five leagues, with Ryan Cherky and Martin Odegaard the only Premier League players above him. Now, I'll insert here the customary asterisk about the Bundesliga being inferior to the Prem, but that is the league he plays in, so we can't get data from anywhere else. But ChatGPT tells me that using a valuing actions by estimating probabilities formula, the Bundesliga is around 15 to 20% weaker than the Prem, and attacking players' stats can be expected to drop by around 20% when they move to England. I did tell you we'd be using high-level analysis, didn't I? Anyway, El Mala is outperforming Gordon and Semenyo's goals and assists per 90 rates by around double, so even if we reduce those stats by that 20% and his XG, he's still hitting elite levels. Now, Dino, El Mala's completed passes rate of 14.6 per 90 is so much lower than both Semenyo's and Gordon's, while his goal-creating actions, shots and shots on target rates are so much higher, and those all hint at that Hazard-like playing style that I mentioned. Plus, his 3.46 carries into the penalty area per 90 minutes is the 12th highest across Europe's Big Five leagues again, with Vinicius, Doku and Yamal the top 3, so he's keeping pretty elite company. So, tell the boys and girls why he's such a goal threat and why defenders cannot seem to deal with him.
Well, it's very difficult to deal with him with all the profile things you've talked about there, size, pace, dribbling ability. But from a tactical point of view, when you go back and watch him, you think he often picks the ball up in this area here on the halfway line. So it's perhaps in counter-attacking positions in the Bundesliga, a bit like the Premier League, can go from one end to the other. But what happens is, and what FC Koln are doing so well, is giving him space. These players are coming away, so he often ends up 1v1 against defenders like that. His pace is unreal. He often takes the ball on his left foot and brings it back onto his right foot. A right footer playing on the left. And then when a defender thinks, oh, I'll nick it, he'll push it past him one way and drive into this area here. So his 1v1 take-on ability in that area is amazing. And then when you get a team that drops back in, and he picks the ball up in these areas here, he'll use a little bounce pass from a midfielder coming up to join him, and then he drives in, and you mentioned those absolute bangers that he's been scoring.
Yeah, and he goes both ways as well, Dino, doesn't he? He scores all sorts of goals. So when he gets into those attacking positions there, what is he doing in order to sort of leave defenders unable to deal with him?
Well, he squares defenders up. And what's so impressive about him is that we've seen some of his assists are crosses to that back post where he cuts back in on his right and hits that lovely little chip cross to the back post. So as a defender, you think, well, I'll try and block the cross. You try and block the cross and he'll beat you up the outside. And then you think, oh, well, I'll stop that. And then he cuts in and shoots. So 3 options for defenders to deal with. This is not a winger who is just doing one thing. He's going both ways. Again, he is predominantly right-footed, playing on the left, but he cuts in, goes outside, cuts back again. What do you do as a fullback when a winger does that?
When he's got the ball at his feet, Dino, he has been compared to Eden Hazard, like we've said. However, he's still a little bit more rough around the edges than the finished product of Eden Hazard. But what is it? Because he sometimes looks a bit scruffy when he's dribbling, but defenders always seem to be sort of like falling over as he goes past them, even if it's not as silky as, say, Cristiano Ronaldo or Lamine Yamal.
Well, there's a bit of exuberance of youth there, I think, where his immediate action is, I'm going to go at a defender. And so as a defender, high-level defenders, they think, well, I can get that. And because he's so quick with his second touch, he then pushes it past him. He's one of those players that dribbles with every second touch. So a defender lunges in and he pushes it past him. And he's got that physique. He's a big lad, 6'1", nearly 6'2" at 19. And that means he bounces off people when he goes past them as well. So it's powerful winger. He actually looks quicker than he is, I think, because he then brushes people to one side and slows them down as he gets quicker.
Now, Dino, I'm sure you're aware of the valuing actions by estimating probabilities formula that I brought up earlier on, which does suggest that the Bundesliga is about 20% weaker than the Prem. So, El Mala's having a lot of success up against Bundesliga right-backs at the moment. How do you think you would see him against Premier League right-backs, against Premier League defences? Would he change, or would the Premier League still struggle to keep up with him?
Well, you know I like the eye test even more than XG, so I'm not quite sure about that one. But Premier League defence is obviously going to be more challenging for him. We've seen lots of players thrive in the Bundesliga and not necessarily have as big an impact in the Premier League. I'm thinking Jadon Sancho here from a similar position. And so if Premier League defences start to get back with 4 and 3 and you have a player in front, what's key for a player like El Mala is that Premier League teams would give him the ball in space, and that's one thing that Premier League wingers can thrive on. So if a game drifts one direction like this and then the ball is switched quickly, you can still get a player 1v1. And I get frustrated as hell with Premier League wingers when they get 1v1 and they don't take their full back on. El Mala will do that.
Yeah, and that helps with the overloads, of course.
Exactly, yeah. And as you say, with his passing as well, his pass numbers are low, and that's because his take-ons are high. So if the emphasis is on beat your fullback, your pass percentage is going to be lower.
And where he prefers carrying the ball, Dean, from those deeper positions, as you mentioned, that would suggest to me that he would be better off in a more counter-attacking team rather than in a possession-based team. Therefore, of the big teams in the Premier League who are being linked with him at the moment, whose playing style, I think I know the answer already, would he be most suited to?
Well, I'd love to see him in a Tottenham shirt, but I'm not sure I'm going to see him in that. I think Manchester United is the answer to your question, where they've gone under Michael Carrick, and whoever their new boss will be next season, they'll be more counter-attacking, they'll be more direct. The Manchester City style's a bit more different. We mentioned Ryan Cherky there. The Cherky Foden style, a bit trickier, a bit tighter areas, is not really his style. Bit more direct. I think Liverpool might have a good look at him as well, because if Liverpool can get transitional phases as fast as they do, getting him 1v1 again will be very dangerous on the left.
So there you have it. It's undeniable that Said El Mala is one of the world's most exciting teenagers and is destined for a massive move away from Cologne in this transfer window or the next. So let's see what SunSport's fee finder has to say about the transfer fee and wages that it would take to prize him away from FC Koln.
El Mala is 19, earns around £13,000 a week with 4.5 years left on his Koln deal and with no release clause, importantly.
That is very important, Dino. Liverpool, Bayern Munich and Chelsea have been monitoring him for months, so Koln will be able to hold out for a massive fee, particularly if Manchester United get involved.
Yeah, and don't forget Chelsea paid £55 million for Esteval, more than $50 million for Jamie Gittins, and Man City just coughed up £64 million for Antoine Semenyo. So there's the going rate for high-level wingers.
Yeah, that sounds about right, Dino. Koln as well are near the bottom of the Bundesliga rich list and do not have a recent history of selling players for big money.
But El Mala's agency represents big names such as Lautaro Martinez and Ashraf Hakimi, so have experience in conducting massive deals for Europe's biggest clubs.
Yep, okay, so taking all that into consideration, SunSport's fee finder expects a Premier League club would need to cough up around £45 million and a 6-year contract worth around £70,000 a week to land El Mala. Dino, is that worth?
Yeah, I'm going to start calling him Maladona after this. Is that good? Yeah, absolutely. For a 19-year-old with his talent and potential, that's money well spent. Clubs would pay top dollar for someone who could be a long-term Premier League star. And as I said, it'd be perfect for Manchester United.